to arrest the GFA president for defrauding by false pretense. And a 5-member Supreme Court panel has unanimously declared the Dasana and Dani family the rightful rulers of the Bimbala skin in the northern region. The court described claims of the Nakpana Dawuni as the rightful heir to the throne as lacking merit. And former Chief Executive Officer of the National Health Insurance Authority, Sylvester Mensah, says the scheme saw improved efficiency during his tenure. He also wants the scheme to be improved beyond emerging abuses. On the international front, at least 45 people have been abducted by gunmen in the northwestern state of Kaduna in less than 48 hours. Victims of the latest abduction include women and children, according to the Road Transport Union officials in Kaduna State. Those are our major news highlights for the day. Remember, you can watch us live on your DSTV channel 279 and hear us on 3FM 92.7. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, a 5-member Supreme Court panel has unanimously declared the Dasana and Dani family the rightful rulers of the Bimbala skin in the northern region. The court described claims of the Nakpana Dawuni as the rightful heir to the throne as lacking merit. Godfred Tanam has the rest of the story.
The Supreme Court becomes the third institution to dismiss the claim of the Nakpana Dawuni family, who claim to be the rightful rulers of the skin. The National House of Chiefs in 2014 dismissed an appeal against the legitimacy of the late overlord of Bimbala, Na Andani Dasana. For 15 years, the chieftaincy issues in the Bimbala area had led to clashes between the various factions. Over 40 people lost their lives, with several property destroyed. This led to the imposition of a 12-hour curfew on the town. The Nakpana faction, however, decided to head to the Supreme Court to seek finality on the matter. The Supreme Court held that nominations are done by the family and decided upon by the kingmakers and not only the head of the kingmakers as has been claimed. This, the court explained, meant the nomination and enscamement of Nakpana Dawuni was invalid. The process leading to the nomination and enscamement of the late Na Andani Dasana was declared as valid and in accordance with law by the Apex Court. The spokesperson for the Bimbala regent, Osman Tahiru Kika, said this is an opportunity for the two factions to come together and fight for a common cause.
I expect that they should accept the decision in good faith and accept the fact that we are one, and therefore show a sign as required of them in per our tradition, and definitely they will not regret it at all. For no reason, we are going to work very closely with them to catch up the losses that Nandong has actually lost during the trying times.
Ahead of the judgment, security was beefed up at the Supreme Court premises, with each person going through security checks before entering the courtroom.
And some residents of Bimbala in the northern region have welcomed the Supreme Court ruling that declared the Dasana and Dani family as the rightful heir to the Bimbala skin in the northern region. The court's ruling is the fourth ruling in the litigation, which began from the Northern Regional House of Chiefs through to the National House of Chiefs and then a Tamale High Court. Ahead of the decision, there was heightened security due to security concerns. The unanimous decision by the court is expected to end a protracted chieftaincy dispute between the Dasana and Nakpa factions. Meanwhile, the regent of Bimbala, Nyalimbogu Na Andani Dasana, in a statement has urged the feuding factions to work collectively to build Nanum together. Right, we're privileged to have Sani Adib, security analyst, executive director of the Jatike Center for Human Development and Peace Building, joining us in the studio. Good evening, sir. Thank you extremely. So, this Bimbilla issue, it doesn't surprise anyone. Does it surprise you, the court ruling? It just reaffirms the previous decisions by the Traditional Council and the Northern Regional House of Chiefs.
Indeed. In 2014, there was a similar ruling, the Northern Regional House of Chiefs, then it went to the National House of Chiefs, and the Supreme Court. Indeed, I spoke with a number of individuals on the ground in Bimbilla, and I was expecting that the jubilation would be more than this, but according to him, this is no news to them because it's happened before, and this is
so how do you see the enforcement? I'm not sure the Supreme Court had a clear prescription of how this should be enforced, but the regent is now legally acknowledged, and is asking all the factions to come together for peace. I'm wondering whether that process is going to be smooth and that we're not going to have any ripples of any violence of assault coming up following this court ruling.
Stephen, it would rather interest you to note that prior to the judgment, there was no effort either by the Peace Council or the government or any civil society organizations towards bringing the families together and making them affirm or append their signature to a principle of accepting the decision, so whichever way it goes.
That's a bad thing.
It's a very bad thing, and I'm very gobsmacked that we told that line, because trust me, we cannot afford to be complacent. I heard the municipal chief executive say that the interim, the security measures on the ground is interim, meaning it's not going to last for a very long time. I understand it will last for a week or two. But remember,
that's dangerous.
That is very dangerous, because we are in Ramadan, and in Ramadan people tend to be docile. After Ramadan, what happens? So we cannot afford to be complacent. Indeed, at the moment,
so your suggestion is that despite the perceived calmness, the police and military presence should still remain.
Exactly.
For how long?
For as long as we can prove that the two families are committed to the process and they see this decision as a win, not for a particular
when you talk
family,
about as long as we can prove, what kind of proof are you looking for?
We have national security infrastructure on the ground. I mean, people who gather intelligence, who are able to preempt and prevent any conflict before it happens in the first place. Okay. If they are able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that we don't have some people stashing weapons in their rooms and ready for a fight, if we can prove that the two families, okay, are ready to let this go and perceive it as belonging to the history books and committed to the whole process of seeing Nanum move forward, I think it will be a good call. Because trust me, for the past 15 years, Nanum has retrogressed to a very large extent, and this should not be seen as a win for a particular family, but as a win for the whole traditional area.
You appear not to see this as the ultimate solution to restoring peace. You're skeptical.
Trust me, it will be naive for anyone to think this is the ultimate, because it all boils down to commitment. It all boils down to respecting the principles of the court and the decision, of course, that came out today. So for me, we have every reason to be happy, because this is monumental. This is a milestone. However, it has to be with caution.
So what are your expectations over the next couple of days? I mean, the regent has made clear statements that appear to be inviting everyone on board, including those he called competitors. What are your expectations? Do you think that he's going to work a little bit more faster, or he's going to get a little bit more support than he has had before the court ruling?
Well, now that he is, he's been declared beyond reasonable doubt that he is the legitimate regent, the king of the Nanum traditional area, there's a lot of task on his head for him to bring all the various factions and the splinter groups together under one umbrella to forge ahead. However, like I indicated, we cannot afford to think that the court decision brings finality to all the menacing socio-economic and geopolitical deficits in Nanum society. It is
assumed office has intentionally been withdrawing itself from direct involvement in the chieftaincy situations, which might have a good basis for that. But in terms of government's involvement, what do you want to see before you're content that the processes will lead to ultimate peace?
Well, one of the most important functions of government is to ensure the security of the people. So we cannot pretend that the government shouldn't have a hand in what is going on. Because it's traditional. No, of course, the government does have a role to play in that regard. It is the role of the government to bring the various factions together. It is the role of the government to make sure that we don't have some elements within the political class, stoking the flames of conflicts. It is the role of the government to ensure that we deal a final blow to the human security deficit in the Nanum traditional area. And I must say, we have done a number of research on the ground. Most of the issue has to do with youth unemployment, and the government has a role to play in that.
Predominantly, the youth in Bimbilla are farmers.
Yeah, right. But there are still a lot of them who are done with school, with tertiary institutions, and they are still, every single day sitting by the roadside and the trees discussing politics. Let us get them something to do. So for me, everybody has a role to play, but the biggest chunk has to be on the government and, of course, the regent of the area.
But are you hopeful?
I'm very optimistic. I have spoken with some people on the ground. I have seen the commitment towards ensuring that finally peace is coming to the area. I've spoken with representatives of the regent. I have seen the commitment on their part too. So for me, there is hope. But we have to be cautious. We have to put the measures and the protocols on the ground to harness this hope.
Ms. Adib, thank you extremely for your time. Sani Adib is a security analyst. I'm Stephen Ente. You're watching News at 10 and listening to us also on radio 92.7, watching our live stream on Facebook and on streamnews.com. We'll be right back. Please stay. Welcome back. Now, the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbing, is questioning why investigative journalist Anas Arimiyawa Anas allowed President Akufo-Addo to see excerpts of his latest undercover piece titled Number 12 ahead of the officially publicized date. On Tuesday, President Akufo-Addo lodged a complaint to the police CID to arrest the GFA president for defrauding by false pretense.
We indulge so much in the court of public opinion than in the court of jurisprudence or law.
What's happening so far this
we all have snipers of a documentary by Anas. Sometimes they say one, sometimes they say two. They even say there's one on Parliament. We were told that it will be aired on the 6th of June. And all of a sudden, it means some other people have got the opportunity of viewing it before the 6th of June. And no less a person than the number one gentleman in the country, the president himself, has given an indication that he has had sight of that documentary. There are question marks to this, And as much as I know what corruption means,
what are the question marks?
The question marks, why him? Why are some people given that opportunity to see the documentary before the general public?
Is that problematic?
There is an issue there.
Tell me.
Who are those behind it? And corruption is both against the giver and the receiver. And so if there are allegations made by somebody against the president, and I'm told the vice president, it's important for it to come out for all of us to see and to decide how this thing should be handled. Should they all be investigated? Okay? Or one group of people should be investigated? Who are those involved? Is it just the president? Is it just the vice? Is it just Nyantechi? There are so many questions without answers.
A former commissioner of the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Justice Emil Short, says President Akufo-Addo may have directed the arrest of GFA President Kwesi Nyantakyi in the latest corruption expose because his name was mentioned. Anti-corruption campaigners at a media encounter on Wednesday further lauded the latest corruption expose involving the GFA President Kwesi Nyantakyi.
Kwesi Nyantakyi's name allegedly popped up in a yet-to-be-premiered investigative piece by investigative journalist Anas Aremiyaw Anas. On Tuesday, President Akufo-Addo lodged a formal complaint with police over the inappropriate use of his name by GFA President Kwesi Nyantakyi. Nyantakyi, who arrived in the country on Wednesday from CAF assignments, reported himself to the CID. The decision by the presidency to announce the expose has been condemned by some commentators who think the president breached confidential agreement. But the former commissioner of the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Shraj, Emil Short, believes the president is not wrong in reporting the matter.
It may well be that the president sees himself as a complainant in this matter. We're talking about defrauding by false pretenses, and the false pretense here allegedly is that monies will be given to the president and vice president. So maybe he sees himself as a complainant, or and that is why he is giving these directives.
The Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition (GCAA) lauded the expose by Anas. Executive Director of GCAA, Beauty Nati, however, questioned Anas's method.
Even though in terms of the approach he uses is not the very normal way of doing investigative journalism, but the issues he's dealing with are very complex, and I use this opportunity to commend him for this current expose that we are looking forward to see, and we also want not just exposing corruption, but any actor who is there should be punished.
The Forum on the Media and Corruption was organized by the Media Foundation for West Africa, and the DW Academy called for more investigative journalists to be able to fight corruption in Ghana.
Well, the GFA president, Kwesi Nyantakyi, has been linked to quite a number of scandals in his 13-year reign. I will run you through some of these allegations. For example, the Globacom agency fee controversy took place in 2008, and in 2010 was a Yoko GFA standoff. And then 2 years later is the Westhead agency fee controversy, and then 2 years. It does appear consistency of 2-year gaps. 2014 was the alleged match fixing scandal which hit the GFA. And then in 2014, same year, was the Brazil World Cup Commission of Inquiry, which looked into how money was transported from Ghana to pay the Black Star players who were told didn't really need the money. And then in 2017 is the non-payment of players' net contribution for 10 years, which also came up. And just this year, 2018, the GFA boss sacked his vice president, as you know, and the circumstances surrounding that is not very clear. And then there is the president lodging a complaint with the CID, which also took place this year. So a tall list of allegations leveled against Kwesi Nyantakyi in the 13 years that he has been president of the Ghana Football Association. And to other stories, the Ghana Police Service is set to meet the media on Thursday, May 24, dubbed the Police Media Encounter. The meeting is expected to address issues bordering on security in the country. According to the Director of Public Affairs, DSP Sheila Abeye Buckman, police operations for the first quarter would be discussed.
In the last few months, police operations bordering on security have come under scrutiny following the high crime rate. This includes the Bukabinya cell break in which one police officer was shot dead. There has been a high rate of robbery attacks in broad daylight. Under pressure, Inspector General of Police in March announced 11 major changes in the security hierarchy following an escalation in crime. This also gave birth to Operation Calm Life, involving the police and the military in an effort to maintain law and order. In the latest reshuffle in May, the police service made changes to 18 of its top officers. Director of Public Affairs DSP Sheila Abeye Bakaman said police operations by the first quarter will be discussed.
But we want to have this engagement with the media where all schedule officers, as in our topmost police officers who superintend over the various units and departments in the service, would give us an account of police operations and activities for the first quarter of the year.
And that's how we wrap up with News at 10. I'm Stephen Enti. Thank you extremely for making time to be with us. On behalf of the crew, good night. There is more news at 3news.com.